Mated to the Lycan King. Chapter 20. The sky above the Lycan kingdom churned like an ocean of bruises, clouds swirling in jagged vortexes shot through with veins of violet lightning. Each crack of thunder rattled the battlements and sent pebbles skittering across the courtyard flagstones. Ward crystals lining the ramparts flickered from their usual steady blue to a sickly gray that pulsed in time with an unseen enemy heart. Ravens wheeled overhead, shrieking warnings the warriors no longer needed. Night Reborn had arrived in full force. Lucian stood on the highest tower, the crown of silver and onyx glinting whenever lightning struck close enough to silhouette his profile. Rain streaked down his cheeks, mingling with sweat and battle grime. Below him, the western wall groaned as dark creatures, half wolf, half smoke, clawed at stone with talons that left sizzling burns. Lucian's sword, Heartfire, burned gold along the edges each time it met the storm-tinged air. He raised it high, voice rolling across the parapets. "Warriors of the Lycan Kingdom, remember why you stand here. For mates, for pups, for every name sung in our halls. This night will not claim our dawn." A roar thundered back from hundreds of throats. Shields slammed in unison, a ringing wall of defiant sound. Lucian breathed strength from that resonance. Yet beneath his rallying calm, fear needled his ribs. Not fear for himself, but for two tiny daughters curled in their cradle, and for the woman now stepping onto the battlement beside him. Raven's cloak whipped in gale gusts, her braid plastered to her rain-damp cloak. Exhaustion painted faint shadows beneath determined green eyes, but magic crackled along her fingertips, embers flaring whenever lightning flashed. She took Lucian's free hand, squeezing once, silently acknowledging that they would either hold the walls together or fall side by side. "They're testing the western wards first," she said above the wind. "If those crystals shatter, the breach will funnel straight toward the citadel. Then we hold the western wall." Lucian turned to Captain Garrick, cloaked in turquoise-stamped leather. "Deploy Crestfall archers to Tower 3. Crossfire anything that climbs the ropes." Garrick saluted and vanished into the storm, voice barking orders. Another shockwave rippled beneath their boots. Violet lightning struck the base of a defensive obelisk, sending a spiderweb of cracks along its quartz face. Raven thrust her palm toward the wound. Flame bled from her wrist in thin ribbons, sealing fissures just long enough for crystal to regain blue glow. The effort stole her breath. Magic reserves felt like thin glass now, but she kept her spine straight. Deep within the inner ward, the healer wing throbbed with urgent life. Kieran paced its corridor, his senses tugged in two directions, the rumble of battle outside, and the soft, irregular moans issuing from the birthing chamber behind him. Ella lay on a low pallet, midwives bustling around, lighting additional lanterns as each contraction intensified. She refused to let them shutter the windows. She wanted to hear the war horns, to know whether her kingdom lived or died. Kieran opened the door and knelt beside her as another wave gripped her body. She squeezed his hand, a sheen of sweat on her brow. "You have to go," she panted. "They'll need your wind." "They need our child alive," Kieran insisted, brushing damp auburn strands from her face. "And our child needs a father who keeps his promises. I stay until you say otherwise." A tremor shuddered through the floor. Dust sifted from the ceiling. Lanterns swayed. Ella's eyes darted to the near wall, feeling the vibration. "The wards won't last forever." Pain knifed through her again, and she groaned. "I can bear this. But if the walls fall, you must be outside, Kieran. Promise me." He pressed her knuckles to his lips. "Give me the word and I'll fly on the next gale. Till then, I'm yours." She managed a weak smile. "Then help me breathe through this next one, Alpha." Lightning stuttered outside, casting bars of purple across the chamber floor. In that flash, Kieran saw echoes of the prophecy, two baby girls cradled together, and an unborn boy destined to join their story. The weight of tomorrow pressed on his chest, but inside it burned a certainty stronger than fear. On the northern rampart, Darius and Serena fought shoulder to shoulder. Rain hissed along Serena's ash-wood bow each time she loosed an arrow tipped with phoenix feather fletching. Every shaft found the hollow eye of a shadow hound before it could leap the wall. Darius wielded his spear in tight arcs, the steel blade humming with resonance from runes Raven herself had etched months earlier. Serena knocked another arrow as a larger beast, ablaze with violet fire, vaulted the parapet. Before she could draw, it lunged at Darius. He intercepted with the spear, haft across its jaws, muscles straining. Serena's arrow thudded through its skull. The creature dissolved in a hiss of sparks. Darius met her gaze, chest heaving. Nice timing. Don't flirt during apocalypse, Serena retorted, but a smile flickered before she pivoted to loose again. Below them, Thalos and Isara stood within a glowing circle, carved atop the gatehouse. Their linked hands pulsed with white-blue light as they chanted a binding litany, voices weaving around one another like braided silk. Every time the wards dimmed, their song brightened them, but each spell pulse left them paler, breaths shorter. Essence waning, Isara whispered between verses. Thalos squeezed her hand gently. Hold until the twins awaken, he answered, eyes closed. Prophecy chooses the hour. Lightning crashed closer. The wards flickered, their chant rose, desperate and beautiful. West Wall, Tower 3. Raven felt energy collapsing in the far left crystal. She inhaled, summoning tongue of flame, but her reserves sputtered. Lucian sensed her waver. He signaled Garrick. 5 mage archers pivoted, channeling blue arcs that laced around Raven's flame, boosting it. Together they welded the cracks before the crystal burst. Lucian turned to Raven, eyes searching. How much more can you give? As much as our daughters lend. She smiled without humor. I felt them stir. Their power whispers in the lattice, quiet, but growing louder. Lucian's jaw tightened. Night Reborn wants them. He won't succeed. He caught sight of a plume of violet fire surging through the enemy ranks below. Creatures parted around the column, forming a path for a figure cloaked in midnight armor etched with the serpent emblem. Despite heaving rain, no droplets touched the armor. They hissed into steam before contact. The whispering shard's faint glow pulsed in the figure's gauntleted hand. Lucian tracked its approach, heart pounding. He's here, he breathed. Raven's gaze followed. And he carries what's left of the shard. Memories of the vision, of a serpent consuming the sun, coiled around her ribs. Thunder shook stone. The figure lifted the shard fragment. Violet lightning forked downward, striking the summit seal's remaining obelisk. It cracked with a deafening boom. The wards guttered to cinder red. All along the walls, crystals dimmed. Shadow creatures surged, climbing with renewed frenzy. Crestfall archers shot until quivers emptied. Garrick's line engaged at sword length. Lucian locked eyes with Raven. We end this at the foot of the seal. Together. She nodded once, drawing flame up her arms until her irises glowed ember orange. Lucian leapt from the battlement onto the lower roof pitch, Raven landing beside him. They sprinted down the sloped tiles, jumping to the inner ward. Soldiers formed a living corridor for them. Behind, Darius heard the call and signaled Serena to reinforce. She raced to the stair. Thalos and Isara felt the wards bleed and sang louder, pouring final reserves into the barrier. At the healer wing, a horn blast echoed low and mournful. Kieran's chest seized. Ella's contraction eased, leaving her panting. He looked into her weary eyes. Go, she whispered. Tears pooled but did not fall. Protect them. Kieran kissed Ronan's soft head. I'll come back. You'll both hear my footsteps. He stood, breath shuddering, then ran for the stairs. As he left, Ella whispered a prayer to Luna, goddess of mothers, and gripped the midwife's hand. Kieran reached the courtyard just as Raven and Lucian landed before the splintered obelisk. The cloaked shard-bearers stood 10 paces away, violet light pulsing brighter. crackling arcs crawling along the broken sealstone. A ring of armored shadow knights encircled him, blades of purple fire drawn. Lucian raised Heartfire. "Step away," he commanded. "This ground belongs to my people." The figure's helm lifted. Darkness swirled where a face should be. Voice like wind across tombstones answered. "Night cannot step away. It envelops. And when morning fails, your daughters will kneel." The shard fragment blazed, feeding storm clouds overhead. Raven bared teeth. "Our children burn brighter than your void." Flames spiraled from her palms, swirling together with wind as Kieran emerged at her side. Power roared, meeting the stormfront head-on, a cyclone of gold, scarlet, and silver. The siblings' combined aura shoved back the knights, scattering them like leaves. Lucian lunged, clashing with the shard-bearer's blade of condensed darkness. Metal screamed. Heartfire flared gold, pushing shadows aside. Kieran whipped wind to destabilize the knights while Raven seized fissures in the obelisk, pumping searing energy into the cracks. The stone glowed white-hot, threatening to melt. But the shard's violet pulse poured corruption into each fracture faster than Raven could cauterize. Lucian struggled. Every parry drained him as the void weapon drank his strength. The shard-bearer laughed, twisting the sword to rip sparks of golden aura free. A shadow knight slipped past Kieran, lunging for Raven's flank. Suddenly, Serena's arrow pierced its helm, and Darius speared it through. They formed a protective arc. "Finish him," Serena called to Lucian. "We'll cover you." Lucian's sword met the void weapon again. Sparks lit the rain like falling stars. He forced the bearer to one knee, but lightning lanced down, striking Heartfire. The golden glow faltered. Raven's magic sputtered. Kieran's wind thinned. They needed another source. And in the depths of the ward lattice, two infant hearts beat in perfect counterpoint. Crystals near the nursery lit with dawn-pink light. Liana stirred, tiny fingers flexing. Leora's eyes snapped open. Her irises mirrored the same sunrise hue. A gentle pulse rippled outward. The damaged crystals drank it greedily. Cracks knit closed. Ward pillars rekindled. Thalos and Isara, kneeling in exhaustion, felt warmth return to their limbs. A silver thread connected them to the twins. Isara's eyes filled with tears. "The heirs awaken." She began a new chant, soft but sure. Thalos joined, weaving the twins' fledgling aura through the palace nexus. Their voices rose, carrying power to every crystal. On the battlefield, ward light surged, bathing Raven, Kieran, and Lucian in rose-gold brilliance. Raven felt reserves flood back, hot and pure. Kieran gasped as wind gusted stronger. Lucian's blade reignited, blazing brighter than before. The shard-bearer staggered, helm cracking. "What power?" the void voice hissed. Lucian's eyes burned molten amber. "The power you feared from the start. Family." He swung Heartfire in a golden arc that cleaved the void sword in half. The bearer lurched as violet sparks fled his armor. Raven summoned a pillar of fire. Kieran wove it into a spiral tornado. Together they slammed it into the shard-bearer. The violet gem shrieked, fractures splitting until it exploded in a cascade of amethyst shards. The bearer's cloak dissolved to smoke, carried off by wind. Shadow knights collapsed, empty armor clattering. Creatures on the slope wailed, bodies liquefying to ash. The storm clouds disintegrated, releasing a gentle rain that washed purple taint from the stone. Lucian stood panting, sword lowered. Raven reached him. They embraced fiercely, foreheads pressed. "You're hurt," she whispered, noting blood on his temple. He smiled, despite exhaustion. "Nothing your flame can't seal." Around them, cheers rose from warriors. Garrick raised crestfall banner high. Allied horns sounded victory. Yet there was no time to celebrate. Raven swayed, sudden weakness tilting her balance. Kieran caught her elbow. "The twins are still channeling," she gasped. "We must guide them, or they'll drain themselves." Lucian sheathed Heartfire and lifted Raven into his arms. "To the nursery," he ordered. Kieran ran ahead, clearing corridors of debris. They reached the chamber where nursemaids knelt in awe. Liana and Leora lay glowing, pink light rippling from their small bodies to the ward crystals overhead. Raven crossed the room and scooped them gently against her chest. The aura calmed into steady pulses. Lucian wrapped arms around all three, tears glimmering. They saved us. Raven kissed each tiny forehead. Our dawn, she whispered. Kieran burst back in, face alight. Ella is ready. She needs you, Raven. Raven handed Liana to Lucian, cradling Leora, then followed Kieran. They reached the healer wing where Ella writhed, midwife guiding. Raven knelt, weaving soothing flame into Ella's lower back. Ella cried out, pushing. Moments later, a second child slid into the healer's waiting arms. A daughter, wailing with powerful lungs. Kieran's tears flowed as he caught the newborn, pressing her to Ella's chest. Raven smiled through exhaustion. Twins, she whispered. Ella laughed, sobbed. Ronan and Rana. Outside, the ward crystals held bright. Night Reborn's army lay in ruins. Yet Thalos collapsed in the plaza, Isara stumbling to catch him. Raven sensed his life slipping. She rushed, kneeling by the elder pair. Isara pressed glowing palms over Thalos's heart, giving him her own vitality. Raven laid a hand atop theirs, channeling residual twin light through them. Thalos's breathing steadied. Isara sagged, smiling faintly. It is done, Thalos whispered. The door is closed. Raven kissed their joined hands. Rest. Lucian entered, lifting Raven when her knees threatened to buckle. They walked into dawning light cresting over shattered clouds. Warriors cheered, horns sounded. Victory had cost blood and tears, but kingdom still stood. Raven leaned against Lucian's chest. We made it to morning. He kissed her hair. And morning belongs to our children. Dawn washed the kingdom in a subdued rose gold that clung to the wet stone and gleamed against swords still embedded in soil. Smoke curled from the charred hulks of siege engines strewn across the ridges, and the wind carried mingled scents of damp earth, scorched flesh, and newly opened blossoms crushed underfoot. Despite victory, the battlefield hummed with a raw hush, as if the land itself held its breath, uncertain how to move forward after so much shattering noise. Lucian strode along the western parapet, cloak torn at the hem, hair plastered across his forehead. Warriors parted to let him pass, some clasping fists to hearts, others bowing heads. He paused often, laying a hand on a wounded shoulder, offering a whispered thank you, or kneeling beside the fallen to close sightless eyes. Each gesture etched another line of exhaustion at the edges of his mouth, but his spine remained straight. The king's presence was balm to battered spirits. At the base of the tower, Raven leaned on a column, twin daughters bundled in her arms. Even wrapped in white linen, their cheeks glowed faintly, like coals banked under ash. She rocked them gently, while murmuring a lullaby that carried over the courtyard like wind chimes. When Lucian descended, she turned a weary smile toward him. They're finally sleeping, she said. Lucian brushed a kiss on Liana's brow. Half the kingdom dozed off with them. He looked around, taking in all who gathered, soldiers stacking shields, healers moving between makeshift cots, crestfall rangers dismantling broken ballistae. We should speak to them. They need more than silence. Raven nodded, then faced the crowd. She lifted her voice, still husky from spell work. Brothers and sisters, hear your king. The courtyard stilled. Lucian stepped forward, rain-spattered cloak settling behind him. His words rang clear despite hoarseness. Yesterday, darkness tried to make orphans of our children and widows of our mates. Our walls shook, but they did not fall. Why? Because each of you, with sword or bow or song, decided dawn was worth bleeding for. He paused, gaze sweeping the crowd. If courage had a face, I see it in yours. If sacrifice had a heartbeat, I heard it in every step up these walls. A murmur of wounded pride and quiet joy rippled outward. Lucian continued, softer. Mourn the fallen, but know they rest beneath the sunrise they defended, and know that as long as this kingdom draws breath, their names will answer every roll call. Raven's throat tightened. She lifted Liana so the crowd could see her small fist waving. For their sake, Raven called, and for every pup yet to be born, we rebuild. A ragged cheer rose, not thunderous but sincere, like a candle-catching wick. Beyond the gates, Darius trudged toward the healer wing, Serena cradled in his arms. An arrow had grazed her ribs during the final surge, and though she had fought on, blood now soaked the front of her leathers. She drifted in and out of consciousness. Not letting me walk? She croaked. Orders from myself to myself, Darius said, attempting a grin. No arguments tolerated. She huffed a laugh, but pain twisted her face. Stubborn Lycan. I learned from the best. He nudged the infirmary door with a shoulder, easing her onto a clean pallet. Healers converged, cutting laces, applying salves that glimmered green. Darius knelt, wiping rain-slick hair from her forehead. You'll live, he whispered. Serena caught his wrist. If I don't say it. Her grip tightened. If I don't, remember I chose this fight. You gave me reason. Tears blurred his vision. He pressed his forehead to the back of her hand. Then choose to stay. The kingdom still needs veteran archers. She smiled faintly before slipping into sleep. Darius remained until healers assured him the wound was clean and not mortal. Only then did he stand, shoulders heavy but heart flickering with unfamiliar hope. In the sanctuary courtyard, Thalos sat propped against a marble column. Isara curled beside him beneath a wool cloak. Their hands remained clasped. Sunlight warmed their faces, and in silence they watched petals fall from the cherry tree that had withstood the siege surprisingly unscathed. Thalos exhaled, voice thin. Do you feel it? The lattice hums with new chords. Isara nodded, eyes closed. Liana and Leora sang the song of renewal without knowing the words. She turned her head, studying his profile. We were the bridge for a moment. Now the path is theirs. Thalos smiled, lines deepening. Then let us be lanterns on the roadside, dim perhaps, but constant. Isara leaned in, brushing her lips across his knuckles. A lantern with you is all I ever wished time would grant. He rested his cheek atop her silver-streaked hair, every breath a silent prayer of gratitude for such unexpected late bloom. 3 days passed beneath healing skies. Burned timbers were replaced, banners mended, and laughter sought footholds in quiet corners. Healers reported no new infections among the wounded. The last shadow corpse was purified and buried beyond the eastern rise beneath a cairn of salt-washed stones. Within those days, Ella recovered swiftly. In the nursery, she nursed Ronan while Rana dozed at her side, twin infants mirroring the Lycan airs across the cradle aisle. Kieran entered, carrying a carved wooden mobile painted in turquoise and soft gold. He hung it above the cradle, the shape spinning, an elk, a falcon, a flame, and a gust of wind. Ella watched it twirl, tears forming. They'll never know a world without hope, she whispered. Kieran sat beside her on the rug, gathering all 3 children in his arms. Ronan nestled against one shoulder, Rana against the other, and Liana curiously tugging his hair while Leora squealed. Nor without chaos, apparently, he chuckled, as babies squirmed. Raven approached the doorway, resting against the jamb. Chaos and hope grow well together, she said. Ella smiled, adjusting her nursing shawl. Kieran's expression turned serious. Lucian convenes the higher council tonight. He plans a blessing ceremony for the heirs, and for these 2. He nodded at his twins. He wants peace cemented in rituals of unity. Raven's chest warmed. It's time we mark the beginning, not just the end. That evening, under a sliver moon, lanterns lined the grand corridor leading to the throne hall. The scent of night-blooming jasmine mingled with wood polish and beeswax candles. Musicians tuned harps and lutes, the gentle arpeggios echoing softly against archways. Inside, the hall's columns were draped with silver silk. The high dais where Lucian and Raven once received war reports had been transformed by Ella's decorative eye. Garlands of white wildflowers, ribbons of turquoise and emerald, and braziers emitting soft rose-gold flame, courtesy of Kieran's subtle wind-coaxing. Raven, clothed in a flowing gown of deep forest green, cradled Liana, while Leora nestled in Lucian's arms. Lucian wore crisp black with silver embroidery of the Lycan crest at his collar. They stood before the assembled pack, friends, allied dignitaries and soldiers. When the hall quieted, Isara stepped forward, leaning on a silver staff engraved with runes. Though still pale, she radiated calm authority. Thalos stood beside her, hand steadying the staff, though his own legs trembled slightly. Isara's voice carried through the hall. In seasons of storm we held fast. Tonight, under gentler stars, we plant seeds. Hear these names: Liana Amberfrost and Leora Dawnflame, daughters of Raven and Lucian, heirs to the Lycan Kingdom. A murmur of approval rustled like wind through leaves. She turned to Ella and Kieran, who stepped forward with their twins. And here, born in battle, yet destined for bloom, Ronan Wired Gale and Rana Skylark, children of Luna's beloved. Applause rose, spontaneous and heartfelt. Isara lifted her staff. Let these four souls be blessed by moon and sun, earth and sky, flame and wind. Let them carry our peace beyond horizons we have yet to see. She traced a lattice of glowing sigils that arced above the infants' heads, 6-point constellations shimmering before sinking like soft rainfall into their skin. The babies giggled or yawned, utterly unfazed. Darius, bandaged but upright, approached with Serena at his side. He held a shallow silver basin filled with water drawn from the mountain spring. Serena dipped cherry blossoms into it, scattering petals across the infant's brows. As she worked, her gaze met Raven's. Mutual understanding passed between them. War's scars linger, yet life heals. Lucian raised his voice. We stand because of courage shown by warriors and by song weavers, by healers and by babes whose power we barely comprehend. Tonight we pledge to guard this fragile, precious peace. A collective vow echoed when we pledge. Music swelled, low drums and gentle flutes weaving a melody of promise. Couples moved to wrap arms around each other, tears shining. Even Garrick clutched the shoulder of a young ranger, pride bright on his face. Later, as lanterns burned lower, Raven stepped onto the balcony overlooking moonlit gardens. Lucian joined her, draping a cloak across her shoulders. Below, night insects hummed soft orchestration. Raven exhaled, watching her breath cloud in cool air. Do you remember, she murmured, the night we first spoke on these stones? I thought you a tyrant. And I believed you a storm I could tame, Lucian answered with rueful humor. She turned, eyes bright. Instead, we learned to ride the storm together. He cupped her face. And from chaos came our light. They kissed. Slow, lingering. The kind of kiss that says, yesterday has ended, and tomorrow waits. In the courtyard, Kieran pushed a cradle gently while Ella rested her chin on his shoulder. His hungry stare devoured his twins' every twitch. They'll have stories, he whispered. Ella traced the line of his jaw. We'll make sure they write their own without shadow. As long as they have love, he said. She interlaced their fingers. They have it in abundance. Darius walked the garden path where spring water tumbled over stones into a shallow pool. Serena limped slightly beside him, arm in a sling, arrow wound healing. He stopped at the water's edge. This spring is where recruits take the warrior oath. Darius glanced down, seeing reflections of lanterns ripple. I took mine alone. Would you share it with me now? Serena's eyes glistened. I was never asked. It would be my honor. She placed her good hand over his on the haft of his spear. Together they recited the ancient promise, voices blending. When they finished, Darius leaned down, pressing a careful kiss to her brow. She closed her eyes, letting the simple warmth anchor her heart. Near the courtyard gate, Thalos and Isara sat on a bench, silver hair catching moonlight. Thalos traced a rune on the back of her hand. The wards mended tonight from inside out. The girl's power followed channels you and I carved years ago. Time is a circle, Isara. Then let us sit at its center, she replied, resting her head on his shoulder, and watch the circle widen. Later, when the hall had emptied and musicians packed instruments, Raven walked alone beneath the colonnade, lulled by distant lullabies from the nursery. A soft breeze tugged her braid. At first she thought it mere wind until she felt an electric prickle of ancient magic. Before her, shimmering like heat above sand, appeared the shaman Isara once called upon. Draped in translucent robes, she bowed. Queen Raven. Raven dipped her head. Spirit Mother. The shaman's eyes, ageless and starlit, surveyed the sleeping castle. The thread you wove tonight ties more than stone. It binds worlds. Raven's pulse fluttered. You speak of the daughter's destiny. And of 2 sons born in distant lands, twin heirs shadowbound now, but dawn will call them. The shaman raised a hand. Silvery mist spiraled, forming the faint image of 2 boys with eyes like forest pools. When Liana and Leora reach the cusp of womanhood, their hearts will call to these princes. Together, they will unify the realms. Raven swallowed. The prophecy's weight shifted from abstract to tangible. Will peace endure until then? That path remains yours to safeguard. The spirit placed an incorporeal palm on Raven's chest, warm, despite intangibility. Teach them light. Teach them mercy. Teach them to wield power with humility. I will. Tears blurred Raven's vision. The shaman's form began to fade, voice soft as wind through reeds. Then my task ends. Yours just begins anew. She vanished, leaving behind the scent of moonlit sage. Raven exhaled, heart pounding with awe and resolve. She turned and found Lucian leaning in the arcade's arch, having heard the last echo. He stepped forward, hands slipping around her waist. Twin sons, he murmured, another story waits, and will guide ours until stars demand they walk it. Raven rested her forehead against his. But tonight belongs to us. They walked hand in hand through the quiet, torchlit corridor back toward the nursery, where dawn-bound heirs dreamed beneath woven blankets, 3 kingdoms' futures breathing in perfect unison. Morning sunlight spilled across the great hall's mosaic floor in honey-gold streams, pooling around polished marble columns and illuminating motes of dust that drifted like soft sparks. Where banners of battle had once hung seamstresses, had replaced them overnight with silken tapestries wrought in sunrise hues, rose, amber, and palest azure, each stitched with the sigil of the Lycan Kingdom, entwined with the crestfall elk and the mountain wolf of Kieran's southern realm. The scent of beeswax and cedar mingled with fresh thyme strewn beneath the high windows, carrying whispers of new beginnings. A low murmur filled the hall as warriors, artisans, healers, and elders filed into semicircular rows around a raised dais. Children tucked behind parents' legs peered with wide eyes. Elders clasped hands, gnarled by age yet reverent with hope. Instruments waited ready, lutes, reed pipes, and a carved silver horn, poised to sound the first ceremonial notes. Raven entered first, bearing Liana against her heart. Leora lay nestled in a sling at the small of her back, her tiny hand catching the light as it flitted above her head. Raven's gown this morning was simple. Cream linen, belted with a plait of red and gold threads, echoing flame and dawn entwined. Her bare feet padded across cool stone, a deliberate choice to feel the kingdom beneath her soles. Gasps of wonder traced her passing, but she remained focused on the 2 seats just before the dais, one for Liana, one for Leora, carved that very night from storm-felled oak polished to a soft gleam. Lucian followed a breath later, carrying a small polished box of whitewood in his gloved hands. Heartfire remained sheathed, hung at his hip, not as a weapon but as a ceremonial symbol of guardianship. He moved with measured steps, but his eyes sought Raven's, and when they met, tension seemed to ease from his shoulders. Thalos and Isara, robed in ivory, approached from the north transept. Though still recovering, they walked unaided. Thalos leaning less on his staff than the day before, Isara radiating serene strength as though moonlight itself had seated her bones. Darius and Serena entered at their flank. Darius's bandaged arm nestled Serena's fingers as though her sling were his own. Behind them strode Kieran, cradling Ronan, and Ella beside him with Rana in her arms. Ella's auburn hair woven into a crown braid threaded with fresh jasmine. The hall seemed to expand to accommodate them, breaths held in collective awe. When all were assembled, the musicians struck a chord, a rising triad that shimmered like dawn cresting mountaintops. The hall hushed to silence. Lucian turned to Garrick, who stepped forward and unfurled a parchment sealed in silver wax. His resonant voice carried without echo. By decree of King Lucian Emberfang and Queen Raven Stormflame, upon witness of allied pacts, crest-bearing clans, and honored spirits, let this gathering bless the future heirs, Lyanna Amberfrost, Leora Dawnflame, Ronanward Gale, and Rana Skylark. May their hearts know unity, may their steps forge harmony, may their flames kindle hope beyond these walls. Murmurs of approval washed through the rows. Raven and Ella exchanged smiles as mothers bound by shared battle and birth. Thalos lifted both hands, palms glowing with gentle light. We gift first a sign of Earth's endurance. Isara joined, weaving moonlit strands that hovered like silvery vines. They coalesced into 4 slender circlets, living ivy crowned by delicate blossoms. Thalos placed a circlet upon Lyanna's soft curls. Isara set another upon Leora's brow. The remaining 2 circlets drifted, guided by quiet stream of magic, to settle on Ronan and Rana. Applause rustled like leaves kissed by wind. Next, Darius stepped forward holding a crystalline vial filled with water from the mountain spring. Serena dipped a carved spoon, sprinkling droplets upon each infant. Water, memory, and resilience, she intoned. May it carry away sorrow and return wisdom upon the tide. Kieran shifted, lifting Ronan slightly toward the hall. Wind to guide, he declared, voice steady as valleys. A soft breeze spiraled down the columns, rippling banners without upsetting single candle flame. It encircled the 4 children in playful currents, coaxing coos and tiny yawns. Raven gathered her magic, not flame's destructive heat, but its nurturing warmth. She breathed across her daughters, conjuring faint glows that danced like sunrise sparks. Those embers floated to Ronan and Rana as well, embedding into each circlet until petals shimmered with fiery motes. Lucian unlatched the whitewood box, revealing 4 pendants shaped like twin moons intertwined with wolf silhouettes. These bear fragments of the restored ward crystals, he said. They will glow whenever true north of home calls. He secured a pendant to each circlet ribbon. Garrick's voice boomed a final blessing, and musicians released a soaring refrain. The ceremony closed, but no one hurried away. Instead, they flowed into conversation. Laughter, tears of relief. Children scampered across the mosaic, chasing threads of swirling breeze. Warriors sheathed blades, clasping arms with those they'd fought beside. For the first time in memory, hope felt heavier than fear. Deliciously, blessedly heavy, like warm bread after famine. Later that evening, Raven and Lucian retreated to the rooftop garden adjoining their chambers. The night sky, once scarred by violet storm clouds, sprawled clear and luminous, stars scattered like fresh-cut diamonds upon dark velvet. The moon, a waxing crescent, winked between drifting clouds. Lanterns along the garden's perimeter cast pools of amber on dew-silvered grass, and the scent of night-bloom lilies mingled with cool stone. Lucian carried 2 goblets of sweetmead. He handed one to Raven as she settled onto a cushioned bench, blankets swaddling the drowsy twins beside her. She accepted the drink, leaning into his side. For a moment, words felt unnecessary, They watched the slow wheel of constellations. I keep replaying the moment the shard shattered, Lucian murmured finally. I feared we would trade one night for another. We still might, Raven answered, tracing the rim of her goblet. Peace is not an end. It's a choice that asks to be made every sunrise. Lucian brushed a thumb across her knuckles. Then let's choose it tomorrow, and the day after, and again, until the twins can choose it for themselves. She exhaled a soft laugh. You almost sound optimistic. Your flame warmed the chill cynic in me. He tipped his forehead against hers. And our daughters set it blazing. Raven's eyes glistened. I felt them, you know. When the shard-bearer struck, they answered night with dawn. Their power is vast. And still innocent, Lucian said. We'll teach them humility, fairness, how to wield light without burning. He swallowed hard, gaze drifting to the infant faces. I wonder what they dream. Maybe they dream of two boys across distant forests. Raven smiled at his raised brow. She recounted the shaman's final message, words gifting both excitement and weight. Lucian listened quietly, only his tightening grip on her hand revealing inner whirl. When that day comes, he said after a long silence, I'll let them fly. But every prince seeking their hearts will answer to this king first. And this queen, Raven added, arching a brow. We'll test them with riddles and duels. Only those with genuine love will endure. Then we shall keep our swords polished, Lucian said, finally smiling. Raven rested her head on his shoulder. I like imagining it. Our halls echoing with their laughter, and eventually the patter of yet more pups, ours, Kieran's, Darius's perhaps. Lucian looked up at the star-dusted sky. A kingdom not built on conquest, but on connection. A gentle cry from the blanket drew their attention. Liana tried to wriggle free. Lucian lifted her, cradling her against his chest. She cooed, small hand gripping his tunic lace. Raven scooped Leora, who immediately rooted for comfort. She fed her, humming the mountain lullaby. Lucian watched, emotion thickening his voice. You turned night into cradle songs. Raven met his gaze. And you gave me reason to sing. Across the citadel, Kieran stood on the balcony of the southern suite, rocking Ronan while Ella swayed with Rana, swaddled against her. Below them, torches flickered along the wall walk, manned by sentries whose laughter floated upward. Light, not boisterous. Kieran kissed his daughter's forehead. Night's end tastes sweet. Ella leaned into his free arm, observing lantern glows shimmering on distant rooftops. Does this piece feel fragile to you? She whispered. Like glass, he admitted. But glass refracts light. We'll keep polishing, not shattering. She smiled, brushing her lips to his jaw. Your words have grown poetic. Our babies demand new language. He nudged her side. Rana's already dictating epics. Ella laughed softly. May her life be epic in joy, not battle. They stood a while longer, the slow sway of parental rhythm soothing tired muscles. Darius limped along the moonlit path circling the healing springs, Serena at his side, arm now free of its sling, though still tender. Steam rose from crystalline pools, reflecting starlight. At the central basin, clear water mirrored twin moons, one true in the sky, one shimmering reflection. Serena dipped her fingertips, sending ripples across the moon's mirror. They say if you make a wish while touching both moons, it finds the ears of every ancestor. She glanced shyly at Darius. What would you wish? He considered. That when I close my eyes each night, trust outweighs regret. He reached, covering her hand where it touched the water. And that you'll share both burdens and quiet dawns with me. Serena's lips parted. She inhaled, exhaled, then whispered, wish granted. She leaned forward to kiss him, slow, tentative, yet unmistakably yes. Water lapped gently, sealing a pact neither had dared to envision. Thalos and Isara strolled the rampart walk just before midnight. Lanterns formed golden chains along the parapet, casting their intertwined shadows over outer walls now calm. Far below, in valley mists, pyres flickered. Enemy dead given flames to keep corruption from seeping into earth. Owl hoots punctuated stillness. Wind rustled banners more softly than ever before. Thalos paused at a crenel, gazing east where horizon darkened toward dawn yet to come. When I first took oath here, my beard held no gray. I believed peace a final destination. Now I learn it is a road, long and winding. Isara slipped her arm through his. Our lanterns will light that road for a while yet. She tilted her head, listening to wind caress ward crystals overhead, still humming with twin resonance. And behind us walked guardians born of light, ready to shine brighter. Thalos rested his cheek atop her hair. Let future historians write our chapter as midpoint, not conclusion. The next sunrise arrived gentle, like a shy apology for storms past. It filtered through open balcony doors of the royal nursery, where 4 babies lay in 2 cribs pushed side by side. Liana stirred first, eyes cracked open to amber flecks. Leora followed, cheeks dimpled. Ronan's small fist punched the air. Rana yawned, face scrunching. Raven, half dozing in a rocking chair, opened her eyes at the chorus of soft sounds. She rose and lifted each child in turn, carrying them to the balcony where Lucian waited, leaning on the railing, shirt sleeves rolled, hair luminous in dawn's blush. He turned, taking 2 infants while Raven held the other pair. Together they watched the pink-gold light sweep over hills, bathing the kingdom in promise. "See that?" Lucian said quietly, pointing to banners catching sun. "That is your kingdom, little heirs." Raven nuzzled Leora's head. "A kingdom of stone and song, and family." "And tomorrow," Lucian added, turning to kiss Raven's temple, "you will build it even higher." Raven smiled, leaning into his shoulder, with 4 tiny architects guiding the design. Footsteps approached. Kieran and Ella stepped onto the balcony, each cradling their twins. Darius and Serena followed, hands clasped, and behind them, Thalos and Isara, slower but radiant. Lucian surveyed the gathering. A circle of warriors, mothers, fathers, elders, and newborn heirs all bathed in newborn sunlight. Emotion tightened his throat. He raised his voice, soft, yet firm. "Night passed. We live. We love. Let these children remember we answered darkness with unity." He lifted Liana slightly toward the sky. Let their first dawn be their compass. The adults exchanged solemn nods. For a stretch of heartbeats, no one spoke. Birdsong provided delicate accompaniment to the hush. The twins gurgled, innocent punctuation marks in destiny's script. Ella broke silence with a gentle laugh. "Look, Rana is already sizing up Leora. Trouble ahead." Raven chuckled. "She'll have to keep up. These 2 have heads full of our stubbornness." She stroked Liana's small tuft of hair. "And maybe your father's mischief," she teased Lucian. Lucian feigned scandal. "I'm a model of restraint." Kieran snorted. "Says the man who leapt a parapet to duel a void wraith." Laughter rippled. It felt strange yet perfect to laugh so soon after bloodshed. Proof wounds could knit beneath smiles. Thalos raised his staff slightly. "Let such laughter be the anthem of an age." Isara added softly, "And let every tear shed become seed for flowers yet unseen." Their words settled like golden dust. That night, when torches dimmed and only sentinel crystals glowed, Raven wandered the silent corridors alone, seeking one last conversation with the castle's stones. She reached the grand hall doors and opened them onto moonlit air, stepping onto the terrace. The spirit shaman waited, luminous silhouette hovering by the balustrade. A gentle breeze stirred her translucent hair. "You kept your promise," Raven said. "And you fulfilled the weaving," the shaman replied. "My time fades. Another guide will come when your daughters seek their destinies." Raven bowed her head. "Will peace hold?" Peace is a song taught to children, the spirit murmured. Teach it well, and it will echo long after voices fall silent. She lifted glowing fingers to Raven's chest. Your heart is strong, Wolf Queen. Sing loudly. Wind curled and the spirit dissipated into stardust, drifting upward like prayers. Raven inhaled, tasting nightbloom jasmine carried on the breeze. She turned, re-entering the hall. Lucian waited at the threshold, hand extended. She took it. They walked back to the nursery, pausing to peer at slumbering children. Lucian whispered, "Shall we write a new chapter?" Raven smiled. "No, let's begin a new book." They closed the door softly on their sleeping heirs, and hand in hand, they stepped into the candle-lit corridor. King and queen, father and mother, ready to shepherd dawn into the uncharted pages of tomorrow. The end.